got scratch on my chin.
Grace, Princess Grace, where are you? It was Aunt Jenny. I went out slowly. It felt like a dream. I looked at her and she looked at me for a long time. Then she pushed the filthy hair from my face. Is it you, Princess? She whispered. I nodded and I was shaking with sadness, relief, and happiness. You can come home now, Aunt Jenny added, and she led me back to the car. I found out a lot that night. Aunt Jenny was preparing a case against Uncle Jimmy, but she had to wait until their divorce was finalized. He threatened me when I finally figured it out. He never paid the ransom. He kept all the money and all the horses. He just moved them to another ranch, but he didn't know how to get rid of you. After you were away, he wanted to find you to get rid of you too, so he could finally use the money for himself. I asked Aunt Jenny why she didn't run away from him like I did. I was too scared to run. I wasn't brave enough. But when Jimmy finally met that socialite, he dropped me like a hot potato. I was finally free after getting divorced last year. I've been looking for you since then. She further explained that since they found me, I could fight Uncle Jimmy in court. Legally, everything was mine. We are going to win for sure, said Aunt
But
Jenny. If you
I
could
remember
think
her
like
with
that,
2K20.
I guess she was thinking that we could move back to another mansion, having a luxurious lifestyle. But
Alright, who doing my live this
I
time?
didn't want that kind of life anymore. Being on the streets made me realize that there are people who may look dirty, but they have clean souls.
Bring
After
there.
we get all the money back, we can buy a big house.
Why they keep joining my live, y'all? They join my live and just
I'm bringing all the kids with me.
turn one back up. Like listen to
But
it.
there's all those kids
Join
in
my
the
live
dumpsters and
and go back
alleys who think they have no place to call home.
There's certainly been a learning curve when it comes to spending more time at home, both working and
Back at home.
Have you ever heard of Cinderella? Well, I've got something to tell you. Evil stepmothers are not just in fairy tales. Before you go on calling me dramatic, you have to hear my story. My stepmother makes Medusa look like an absolute saint. Get ready for a story full of tears, crime, and a whole lot of
Bring.
You're probably wondering, what's so evil
What?
about
Sir, what to the what to the what?
You'll know by the end of the story.
Oh, that game
You'll just have to be patient.
we all
In the
want to play.
meantime, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. If you don't, your worst enemy will win the lottery. You don't want that, right? Not that winning the lottery is always a good thing, though. That's actually where all of my troubles began. See, when I was 5, my mother left my father and I. She never gave a reason, apparently. Just left a note and walked out. I don't even know her name. I don't remember much about her from my childhood at all, but I do remember my dad. My dad was charming and perfect.
Oh, I thought I missed
He
that.
was a complete gentleman to everyone. Although he wasn't the most handsome or fit guy, he was a plumber and women wouldn't look his way. It was just us for years, and I loved it. Then, $2.
You know I don't.
Lives forever. We were walking and saw a scratch ticket on the ground. We figured we should try to play, so we picked it up and scratched it. We were only expecting to win $1 or $2, but we ended up winning the jackpot. $5 million. I was super happy
Dang.
at first, but I had no idea just how different our lives were going to be. My dad bought a mansion and a pony, and he invested the rest, quickly tripling his fortune. We were rich beyond our wildest dreams, and people started
Green,
to take
green.
risks. It wasn't long before my dad was dating again. At this point, he could have had anyone he wanted. For some
Yay.
Got the text, he was so upset that he decided to drive out to say a proper goodbye. Sadly, he never made it to the airport. He got in a huge car accident. I was still at the airport when I got the phone call and left the airport immediately. I even left my suitcases behind.
Oh, I just can't wait for Christmas, y'all. That's just coming in my head.
Already died.
Like, it's November.
But you know who wasn't?
Like, oh my God.
Taylor. All she could think about was what was in the will. It was actually the first thing she asked me when she saw me at the hospital. So, do you know where your dad keeps the will? I was so angry, but I kept my cool because I had some information that would hurt her more than any insult would. Yeah, I do. And he left nothing to you. I laughed. She nearly passed out on the spot. When we got back to the house, I pulled out the will and everything was being left to me. Her face went pale like a ghost, and she ran out of the room while dialing the number to her lawyer. I have to admit, I got some satisfaction from her panic. Sadly, I did not get the last laugh. After she talked to her lawyer, I did not see or hear from
I'm
her.
putting my bonnet on you. This is nature, the bonnet girl.
I thought I had won, and she was finally out of my life. I couldn't be more wrong. Turned out, she had spent all that time away searching for the whole will for any type of loophole. Unfortunately for me, she found one. On the day of the official will reading, she was there with her lawyer. She had a smug look on her face that made me super suspicious. I waited to see if there was anything I missed, or maybe something she changed. But no, it was all going to me. Then the speaker said something that made me fall out of my chair. Literally. Do you know how in medieval times, if a prince became a king during his childhood, someone else would step in as the ruler until they were a full adult? That's kind of how the inheritance worked. Until I was 18, my guardian would be in charge of my funds. When the speaker asked who that was, Taylor raised her hand. My jaw dropped, and I immediately said that wasn't true. She was just my dad's girlfriend. She smirked at me and whipped out a paper. If I'm not your guardian, then what are these? She asked. They were adoption papers. Like fully legal adoption papers. And to my horror, my signature was at the bottom of the page. I tried to say I never signed anything like this before in my life, but Taylor insisted I was grieving. Nobody believed me, and I was forced to drive home in the car.
Little boy. Hold up.
Person in the world. She told me there was going to be a lot of changes in my life. She told me that I needed to
I'm back, y'all.
She walked me over to
Just
the car
watching
and opened the trunk.
watching
I assumed it was for my bags, so I leaned in. Then she pushed me inside and closed the lid. A few seconds later, she started driving off. I was leaving, leaving all my stuff behind. All I had on me was my wallet and a cell phone with no service. After a couple of hours, we finally stopped. She opened up the back of the car just enough for me to jump out and scream at her. She didn't even bother to listen. She just got back in the driver's seat and drove off. Spanish and just explained that they were paid a lot of money to reform me. I tried to run away, but it became apparent that I had nowhere to go. After 3 years of wandering around, lost, I showed back up to the church, defeated. The nuns didn't seem so surprised and gave me a change of clothes and a list of chores to do. If you told me I would have traded in my Prada bag and short skirts for church robes and a Bible, I would have never believed you. But there I stayed and grew quite accustomed to the church. I'd come to terms that this would be my life forever as I spent some years there, but one day, my life was about to turn upside down. Remember how I said there would be lots of corn? Well, we're getting there. We had a long day of tending to the garden and praying. I caught a glimpse of something I never thought I'd see again. No, it wasn't a laptop or indoor plumbing. It was a man. Apparently, he was delivering some supplies to the church. Normally, his mother was sick today. He was going to rest a bit before he took off again on the long drive back to his house. He had to be about my age and was super fit and hot. He must not have seen so many young girls either, because he looked back at me with the same sort of fascination. He immediately came up to me and started to compliment me, saying I was much different than the other nuns. I was young and beautiful, and he was very attracted to me. I explained that I too was very attracted to him. When he said it was too bad I was a nun, I immediately corrected him, saying it was a long story. Before I could say anything else, the oldest, meanest nun interrupted us. She said it wasn't very ladylike to be talking to boys, and she dragged me away to do other chores. I was worried that was the last I'd ever see of the mysterious man. A couple of hours later, as I was chopping some firewood, I heard some whispers coming from behind a bush. It was the man from before. He told me that if I wanted, he would drive me far away from here. He told me to hide under the crops in the back of his truck while he distracted the nuns. Then, we just drove off. I was picking corn out of my clothes and hair for hours. Who knew my kidnapping would ruin corn for me? We drove for hours and hours, and I told him everything. He was incredibly kind and sympathetic and said he would do anything to help me. I asked if he had an internet connection at his house, which he did. Well, I didn't even waste a minute when we got to his door. I ran right for a computer and started to log into my Facebook and see what had happened. Most importantly, I wanted to know where Taylor was and who that mysterious woman was. Well, the most shocking thing about my Facebook account wasn't the thousands of missed messages. It was
hello, Katen. Hello, Katen.
At first, I thought they were belated wishes about my
I'm happy I got 2K21.
The truth was much
oh my God.
disturbing. People
Who's
thought
here?
I was dead. I used Facebook to call one of my dearest friends. She answered immediately and seemed so shocked to hear from me. But
hold up.
It can't be. You're dead. She started to cry.
Hello,
Everything that had happened to me with the strange woman in the monastery, and I asked why everyone thought I died.
Oh, it's one. Oh, I can't talk.
Everyone I had gotten into an accident overseas and died. Since I was in a third world country, no one ever tried confirming the evidence.
That's green.
She had a death certificate and newspaper articles. My friend told me, if I would have known, I would have helped you. You can still help me, I said with a devilish plan in mind. I asked her to buy me a plane ticket back home, even though I had come unexpectedly.
Hold up. Alright. Oh, you better call me? Okay.
In my robes. I printed out the boarding pass and asked the handsome man to take me to the airport at once. He wholeheartedly agreed and asked me to come back for him when I had my life figured out. My friend met me at the airport with tears in her eyes. She brought me a change of clothes and asked me what the plan was. I asked her if she could have the police come to my house in an hour because I wanted some alone time for a reunion. I showed up to my old house and could see that Taylor had been busy with my fortune she inherited as my legal guardian after I died. There were several expensive sports cars in front of the house and very expensive statues that
my career,
left.
I don't feel like doing all that.
Knocked and was greeted by a butler.
Like that took me.
Taylor was busy.
Yeah.
I told her to let Taylor know it was a family emergency from her daughter. I wish I got a picture of the look on Taylor's face. She screamed when she saw me.
Fade away, look up.
How is it? How are you? She stuttered. I asked her if she really thought nuns could just...
Hey, I'm not lying, my dad got me
was
Where you at?
dead. Carly, get down here now. Dead? A few minutes later,
He's
I
what?
heard
She.
the voice of a familiar woman. Where are you going?
What?
Officer, I was asleep. She started. The woman froze when she looked at me. It was none other than the woman who had brought me to the church in the first place. They fought back and forth in front of me. They started throwing faces at each other and screaming. Apparently, Taylor paid her sister to get rid of me, but her sister couldn't go through with it and gave 50% of the hitman money to the nuns to take me in. Taylor turned and asked if anyone else knew I was here, and I got a very uncomfortable knot in my throat. I will never know if she was actually going to hurt me, because the moment she approached me, the cops knocked on the door. Even without the concrete proof of attempted murder, the fraud and lottery worked to keep her locked up for the rest of her life.
Oh.
Plus, she was going to be paying me back for many years. It was hard to get back in the groove of my old life, but I guess it's easier when you're rich. I ended up flying out the handsome man who rescued me to live in the country. He ended up hitting it off with my best friend that picked me up at the airport. It seems fitting that my hero and I work together. As for me,
Almost fell.
I'm done with my university degree, and I'm happy to say I opened up my mansion as a giant foster home, so no one has to end up with evil stepmothers.
She's not even on the phone, y'all. What's your boys? Me, I never put, oh yeah, Will to Fraser. Can I get the ball, please? Nah, I
I just
can't.
turned 19 and I just got married. Unlike most people who get married for love, I got married
Get that
for
boy,
another reason entirely.
big black
Married my
coin.
boyfriend for revenge. Does that sound crazy? Well,
Yeah, I'm
when
not
it
doing
comes to
all
my new
that.
husband,
Yeah,
Terry,
it's like, yes, I
love
ain't
him
doing career.
and
Who you think I
hate him at
am?
the
Playing
same
my
time.
team like that.
Ever
Hey,
feel this way I feel? If you do,
go!
please click the link in
That's
the description
fine.
buttons. Here's my story. To be perfectly honest, the happiest person at
That's
my own
green.
wedding wasn't the bride.
What that?
My father.
What?
He practically
What?
forced me to marry
Didn't make the
because
first.
Jerry's rich family was investing in
Well,
my dad's
oh.
business that was going bankrupt. It wasn't so bad at first. I really fell in love with Jerry because he's so handsome, charming, and funny. But when I got to know him more, I found out that he had one major
She was.
When Jerry declared his love
I
for
hung
me
up. She's at Mason's
family,
house.
my heart fluttered in my chest. I looked lovingly back at him.
Y'all-
At the reception, I heard Jerry flirting with one of my
Girl, let me
bridesmaids.
concentrate.
You're so lovely. He said, if I weren't marrying Cassie, I would
I don't
marry
like
you.
chocolate.
Underneath his charming smile,
No.
Jerry was awesome. He was such a
Yeah.
flirt. I can't believe he was
Y'all, she hurt my nerves.
at his own wedding. But then, I caught him
Green.
staring at another woman while we were doing
Not my
the
fault.
I pushed his hand away from my waist, and then he tripped and fell flat on his face. The party came to an
Yeah, she think I'm playing with her.
his front
Playing with her.
such pain, and we had to
Playing,
bring him to
playing,
the
playing,
dentist
playing,
right
playing
away.
with her.
I wanted to comfort him as a proper wife should. However, I couldn't do it. Jerry deserved all the bad things that were happening to him. But all at once, I felt so guilty about thinking these bad thoughts. Do you understand what I was feeling?
Joe Biden.
It was like there were two girls in my body.
Girl, why I want to love with that dusty, musty
Wanted to
French
kill him.
face?
Then we left for our honeymoon. It got
Cool.
even worse. I guess Jerry wanted to show me
No.
just how macho he was by going over the speed limit. I wasn't surprised to hear sirens behind us. A traffic cop pulled us over.
Hey, good
Jerry
luck.
was worried at first. Then he saw
can't
the
have the
cop was
Whoppers?
a lady. She's not gonna give us a ticket, he told me arrogantly. Just watch this. So I watched a master charmer at work.
Oh my God.
He batted his eyes. He
Yes.
picked all the right words. He said that if he hadn't married the lady cop, he would be speeding more to
Girl.
get to their honeymoon. Of course, the traffic cop blushed, and she let us off with just
You
a
leave me
warning.
alone.
It was just
Girl,
so
I'm all
humiliating to
loud.
sit there and watch
I'm all
my
loud.
husband flirt with other women. I wanted to punish Jerry by the time we got to the airport, but again, the universe did it for me. We were checking in when airport security stopped us. Apparently, there was another man with the same name who was a criminal and was trying to flee the state. Jerry went through a completely humiliating body search and a long interrogation in the detention center. A part of me hated it that I had to vouch for his identity, but I had to do it. Instead of being grateful to me, Jerry was in a terrible place.
That's what I
He
do.
felt even worse when he found out that I had changed our honeymoon destination. You see,
That's green. Let's go.
I secretly canceled our reservation at a 5-star resort hotel.
Nene. Ah!
Island
I'm
in the
taking
middle
a
of a
bite.
lake
I don't care.
of hurricane season.
Shoot the
Do
dude.
it for romantic reasons.
I don't care.
We grabbed a quick bite.
He act my
before
nerves,
boarding our plane. Of course, Jerry was flirting with the waitresses too.
Oh.
Choked on his food. I wanted him to fall off his chair, but Jerry was in for a worse fate. I guess the spicy tuna sandwich didn't agree with his digestion, because by the time we were already up in the air, Jerry was headed for the plane bathroom, where he spent most of the flight puking out his guts. An attractive flight attendant came to check on him, just as he was about to sit beside me again. He asked her for some coffee to settle his stomach. He also gave her a wink and watched her walk down the aisle. But just as he was about to drink, we hit turbulence. I actually kind of gloated when he spilled that scalding hot coffee on his lap. By now, I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to say, "Oh, Jerry, can't you see what's happening? Whenever you flirt or cheat on your new wife, something bad happens to you." But of course I didn't. The universe had punished him enough, I thought. Now it was my turn to do it. When we landed, my new husband was puffy-faced, smelly, and had a burning hot crotch. Now it's time to reveal my big secret. Because he always made me feel so bad, I vowed to teach Jerry a lesson on our honeymoon. So I hired an actress named Samantha. She and some others were going to be with us on our honeymoon, and they had one job. I hired them to scare the living crap out of my new husband. I wanted revenge. I was already suffering in this marriage, and I wanted him to suffer too. Sure, I wanted to call it off many times, but after everything that Jerry did, I decided to go through with my plan. I texted Samantha. I told her that we were just about to land, and that I hoped that everything was ready for Jerry. That was the last message I got to send on my phone, because that's when the big storm started. Whatever happened that night, there was no way for Jerry to escape. Mr. Smith, the old owner of the bed and breakfast, met us on the docks and drove us to the inn. It was already raining. Jerry thought everything was romantic.
But I don't see what the code sign look like. Like, that's why I don't
He read the
want
first few
to know.
lines and realized that we had checked into a haunted place. "Did you know about this?" he asked with his eyes widening in fear. I pretended to be shocked and scared. "This building wasn't built as an inn. It used to be an orphanage," Jerry said with a squeal that wasn't macho at all. "They closed it down." Discover more about the lab's time with the new lab, like new recipes, fitness tracks.
How? That don't make no sense. No, if I shoot this free, 18 points. If they miss and I shoot another free, I win. Oh my god, he made that. Oh my god, he made that. Play time for that. I'm up to you. Caden's calling me. Let's go.
Because they were using the children for experiments a few decades ago, and then they turned it into an inn that's rated to be the most haunted place in the world. I wanted to laugh in Jerry's face, but I had to keep my cool. I reminded myself to give Samantha a big bonus for planting that bug.
Oh my god.
Trying to reassure Jerry that everything was going to be just
Yeah.
full on our honeymoon. Then Mr. Smith called us for dinner. He served us their house specialty. It was black blood stew with some aphrodisiacs thrown in. We'd call it a love stew, he said before he left us for our meal. Jerry was looking cautiously at his food. In truth, it looked gross.
Are you taking your hair out now?
Whatever was in there, I was sure that it was all edible. This was just all a part of the plan.
Why did
Jerry was
you
about to
early?
take a bite when a strange but
Hold up.
beautiful woman came in. "Good evening," she said. "I hope
I
you
really
are
want to
having
do
a
that
good
one. I should
time."
have showed him.
He
Ouch.
smiled his killer smile at the woman and asked if she knew about this place.
I'm getting it done
The woman
again
replied,
tomorrow.
"I'm Margaret Smith. I'm
Oh.
the caretaker's wife." I could see the confusion on Jerry's face. The caretaker was this really old man. How could he have a wife as young and beautiful as her? Then he started flirting again. Even asked her about the book. "Oh, I'm sure a big, strong man like you won't be scared by a bunch of horror stories," she added with a seductive laugh. "All those things happened a long time ago." Of course, Jerry had to prove that
Please?
he wasn't
Yeah.
scared. So he laughed too, but I could see that he was getting a little scared. For once, I didn't even mind his flirting, because that night, all of Jerry's fears came to life. When it was time for bed, I pretended to be very tired and sleepy. In truth, I was waiting for the show to continue. Jerry was very tired, and he fell asleep at
I'm dead.
Screams. Jerry started to shiver with fear. He snuggled closer to me. After a while, it became
Don't know
very
what you
quiet,
are.
and I whispered,
Watch, you better call me back.
I really did. I asked him to go with me.
Go, y'all.
It was just across the hall. Jerry opened the door cautiously and went out first. The coast is clear, he said. I stepped
No,
my fist
Luca.
to stop the giggles from escaping. I was still
Hold
in the
up.
bathroom when we started to hear the sounds of chains
Ooh.
dragging.
No, I'm not even gonna
Jerry
say it.
began to pound on the door. Let me
You
in.
can't even stand with
I
girl.
told him that I wasn't done yet. Open the door,
Green.
Cassie. He cried again.
Swish.
You could hear real fear in his voice. This was the
2K21 got me.
I told him that I
We
would
having
open the door
fun.
if he admitted that he had a problem. He was a terrible flirt and a terrible husband. The sound of chains was getting louder. I heard Jerry run back to our room. Oh,
Hold
no,
up. She
he
keep
said.
texting
Our room
me.
is locked. Please, Cassie, if you really love me, open the door. Suddenly, I felt guilty again. Wasn't it enough that Jerry had gotten so
Hold
much
up.
bad luck so far? My heart softened a little, so I opened the door. But now, instead of just chains, we started to hear someone screaming. Jerry grabbed my hand and sprinted for the stairs. Run, he gasped. But even before we reached the stairs, a child appeared in the hallway behind us. Help me, she said. Jerry couldn't contain his fear anymore. He squealed like a girl and practically flew down the stairs, dragging me with him. We were panting when we burst in the kitchen and
Hey.
Margaret was there. There's something scary up there, Jerry shrieked. He looked like a terrified little boy. Oh, don't be silly, she said with another laugh. Would you like a midnight snack? She turned around to make a sandwich, and we saw that there was something on the back
Oh,
of the box.
God.
Jerry walked closer to Margaret, as if to wipe it off. Then he gasped. It wasn't dirt or mud on Margaret's blouse. It was fresh red blood, and there was a short silver handle poking out of it. When she turned around again, Jerry roughly pulled me behind him. What happened to you?
Oh,
What's
and that
going on
ooh.
here? He asked angrily. Margaret smiled sweetly at him, and she looked directly at me. In her hand, she was holding a bread knife. I sense that you are unhappy, Cassie, she whispered. Aren't you on your honeymoon? Jerry pulled me closer to him. Don't you dare come near her, he told the beautiful and sinister face of Margaret. Meanwhile, I wanted to clap my hands. This actress was really extraordinarily good. Then I started to talk to Margaret. I told her that I felt bad that my new husband was a big flirt. I said that it hurt me because Jerry didn't even seem to
Green.
respect me at all. I started to
Swish.
cry. I wasn't acting either.
I'm just good at 2K21 like
I'm
that.
sure your husband
Like, I'm just good.
explain himself. Jerry turned his full attention on me. Do you love me, Cassie? He said with
What's
a
that?
shocked look. Of course I do.
What?
I wouldn't have married you if I didn't. Then Jerry's whole face changed. At first there was shock, then
Green.
disbelief. Then he looked absolutely
Like,
relieved.
I'm just good like that. Like, I can win this game.
Very softly. I thought you were just with me because your parents forced you to do it. That's why I flirt. I wanted to make you jealous. It hurt me so much to think that I was marrying a girl who didn't love me. Jerry cupped my face in his hands and seemed to have forgotten that there was a strange woman in the room who he obviously thought was a ghost. I fell in love with you the first time I met you, he added. I promised to be a better person. I promised to stop flirting. You were the most important.
Give me that.
So in the kitchen of that haunted bed and breakfast with a highly
That's
skilled
green.
actress acting like a
What?
ghost,
What?
I really understood my husband. We both cried and we kissed. It was the most beautiful
What?
night of my life. I'm so
Make sure
glad
you
we
got
met
this. You
straight
said you
out,
got one
Margaret
this.
said with a smile. True love is an amazing thing. Please, Cassie, Jerry whispered on the way back to our room. Can we start over? I nodded. Jerry didn't get any more bad luck that night. And if there were any more strange noises, we were oblivious to anything else except each other. The next day,
You're never gonna make
there was
that.
a song in my heart. Jerry begged me to go to another hotel. Of course, I agreed.
Green.
We packed our bags and met Mr.
Oh my God! Why are you
Jerry
not
wanted to leave
making?
right away, but I made him stay for a while to say thank you. We
I don't even
had a
care for
lovely
real, for real.
time, I said sincerely.
I just
Mr.
wanna
Smith
win.
agreed.
If
Mr.
you make
Smith
a game.
smiled. Then Jerry noticed something we didn't see earlier. It was a
No,
painting of
don't
a
do that
beautiful
now.
woman near the front door. Who was that?
Yeah.
He gasped. Mr. Smith.
Oh my
chuckled.
God.
That's Margaret, my wife.
Hold up! He touched the ball. This game.
Beautiful.
Oh, nature, don't say that.
Ago, and he said,
This 2K21, not 2K20.
She
Yeah!
was a terrible flirt. When I confronted her, she said that she wanted
Green.
a divorce, and I
What?
let her do that. They
Oh, this gonna be fun.
5 years. She's forgiven me for what I did. Jerry's eyes got bigger than I had ever seen before. He practically dragged me out of the place. Secretly, I was very impressed with Samantha.
Oh my god, I thought they won for a second. That would scare me.
I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Mr. Smith was in on it all along. While my husband was busy checking us into the airport, Nicole's family.
Yay! I thought I
Great
was.
show you had last night, and it worked. But
Oh my
Samantha
god.
had her own surprise for me. I found out that they never really made it to
That hurt.
because of the storm. We couldn't make it at all. She'd been trying to call me all night to say they had to call it off, but she couldn't reach me on my phone. I felt goosebumps in the back of my neck. I snuggled closer to Jerry when we got to the plane. He kissed the top of my head and told me not to worry. The nightmare was over. The bad luck was over too. The past few days have been terrible for our marriage, but it was going to change. We were off.
Yay! I got to open it. Show me one more token. Good. Oh. There's 13.
If you were gonna make a moment, make it beautiful, make it surprising, make it with friends, and make it unique. Whatever moment you choose, and however you choose
Hold
to
up.
make it a nice moment.
Is what?
It was a Wednesday morning when I received the letter. As I was taking a sip of my coffee before work, I immediately froze. It had been over 10 years since I received any communication from my parents. I was all grown up now and hadn't thought about mother and father for years. I embraced the fear and opened the letter. My heart stopped. The twisted pair was being released from prison next week and let back out into society. I began thinking about the day I decided to run away from home. I had drafted the perfect plan in my diary. It had taken me about a year to perfect every angle. It was risky, but I was finally ready. On Sunday evening, when I knew my parents were asleep and the maids would be gossiping down on them.
Hey, I'm Kenya, and I'll share my story of how I survived living in an orphanage. But first, make sure to like this video and hit subscribe. If you do it, the fairy godmother will bless your life with love and money. So I've been living in the orphanage for as long as I can remember.
Alright.
All I know is that my mother is in jail and my dad died in a car accident. Life at the orphanage was normal, but a bit dull. All the children had
That was Ron
which
James.
was getting adopted by a nice family.
That's why I made
When I
that.
was 10,
What?
Mr. Johnson took over the
I'm gonna play a quick
Let me
game.
tell you, we could smell trouble coming just by looking at him. On his first day, he told all the kids to gather in the dining room, and when he did, he made his first announcement with a strict tone. From now on, all rules will be changed. Anyone who does not follow them
Hold
is
up.
sent to the isolation room. All the children gasped in fear, but I didn't take his words.
Hold up.
So I said to
Hold up.
my friend, he is joking,
Well-
isn't he? Then he yelled, "Who said that?" Silence took over the room. No one said anything, but when he threatened one of the girls, she pointed at me. He told me to come forward and stand on the chair. Then he asked one of the teachers to bring some scissors. Then, to my complete horror, he started cutting my long, beautiful blonde hair while saying, "This is what you get for interrupting me. No one should speak in my presence." Tears started falling down my eyes, and all the children were terrified. From that day on, life at the orphanage became a horror. We all felt like prisoners. We had to work for everything, and the only free time we got was the time we went to sleep. The only thing that made it fun was watching my crush Braxton. Braxton was so handsome and cute, but we weren't allowed to talk to each other because Mr. Johnson had a rule of no mixing between boys and girls. But one day I opened my locker to take some clothes out. To my horror, I found Braxton there. He put his finger on his mouth as a signal for me not to say anything, but I whispered, "What are you doing
Okay,
here?" And he
right top.
responded, "I broke one of the windows outside and I thought the girls' locker room was the perfect hiding place." I wanted to reply, but we heard someone coming, so Braxton pulled my hand and dragged me inside. It was tight, and we stood across from each other. I felt my face burning and my heart pounding like crazy. Braxton, however, didn't care at all. He was listening carefully. Then our eyes met, and we blushed. He whispered, "I think we can go out." I blushed and said, "Yes, I will go out with you." But he laughed and said, We got out and Braxton left through the window. And from that day on, Braxton and I started dating in secret. We started exchanging letters in secret and meeting in the locker where nobody knew where we were. But then the whole thing got exposed when one of the counselors noticed how the two of us were looking at each other. And one time, while we were hugging, she opened the locker's door and said, "Oh, I see what's happening." Braxton and I were caught by surprise. She looked at us angrily and told us to follow her to the office. We sat there waiting for the punishment, but instead she said, "Do you have any idea how much trouble you can get in by doing that?" Braxton and I sat in silence, feeling guilty. She let us out after half an hour of scolding. But when we got out, Braxton had a look of determination on his face. He turned to me and said, "We need to leave this horrible place." I objected. "We are only 16. We are too young. We won't be able to survive." But he insisted, "We can manage. I'm leaving tonight. You have to come with me. Meet me at midnight in the yard." Braxton left me a bit confused. I thought about it all night, but I came to the conclusion that the orphanage would be depressing without him. So at midnight, I packed everything I wanted and met him in the yard. We managed to skip the surveillance cameras and ran away.
Hold up.
We didn't know where to go. We kept walking in the street till morning came. After having breakfast, Braxton suggested that we start looking for a job.
Hold up,
We
let
only
me.
had $100 that Braxton had managed to steal from one of the counselor's purses. We agreed to meet at the same spot several hours later, and we both went asking for jobs. But unfortunately, no one wanted to hire us because we were too young. At night, we managed to get a room in a motel.
I mean, candy right now? Can't be right now. Alright, can't be right now. I'm gonna get cavity one day.
Well, what's better than sleeping on the street?
No, don't say
You'll
that.
get used to it. A week went by with both of us looking for a job. Braxton lied about his age and got a job at a fast food restaurant, but I wasn't as lucky as him. So at the end of that week, Braxton told me, "Hey, Kenyon, we need to split up. I can't provide for the both of us anymore." I looked at his face. Braxton was dead serious, but I was enraged. "You made me run away with you, and now you want to give up that easy? What a jerk." I took my things and got out. I can't go back to the orphanage because Mr. Johnson will punish me and I have nowhere to go. I sat on the corner of the street wishing that someone would offer some help. 2 days passed, but nothing happened. I was tired and dirty. I ate only the leftovers people left on restaurant tables. I was exhausted. Then late at night, a good-looking young woman came and asked me, "What are you doing here, young lady?" I burst into tears. She was the first one to speak to me in 2 days. I responded, "I have no one. I'm homeless." She felt sorry for me, but then she asked, "I'm Carmen. I live on my own. I would love to have some company. Would you like to live with me?" I couldn't resist her offer. I needed help, so I immediately said yes. The woman took me to her house. She offered me some food, and I ate like a savage girl. She showed me to my room, and I slept like a baby. However, the next day over breakfast, she said, "You can't just live here for free. You have to work for it." I looked at her with a surprised look on my face, but she continued, "Don't worry, it's a cleaning business. I clean rich people's houses and get paid for it. I'll pay you, of course." The whole thing looked tempting. I'll work and get some money. It doesn't seem so bad, but that's not what happened. On our first cleaning day, we went to this magnificent mansion. The owner gave the keys to Carmen and then went to play some golf. Carmen took some cleaning tools out and told me to sweep the floor while she went checking the rooms. I knew what she was doing was wrong, but I couldn't stop her. I kept cleaning silently. At the end of the day, the owner came back and handed Carmen $1,000. On our way home, Carmen took $200 and gave it to me and said, "You've earned this." I looked at her with pure aversion. Carmen didn't help me at all. She left me to clean all by myself. I deserved half of that $1,000, but I was too exhausted to say anything, so I kept my mouth shut. But this kept on happening. I died cleaning those houses, and Carmen would get paid for us both. I also noticed that she would hide things in her little bag. One time, when she was checking a painting on the wall, I opened the bag and noticed a diamond ring. I gasped and closed the bag as fast as I could. That night, I made my decision to steal. If I want to live a better life, I need to start making money. If Carmen does it, then I can do it too. So I started stealing small things from the houses. Little pieces of jewelry, small wooden antiques, and expensive gold pens. But I didn't keep them with me. I sold them by going to antique stores. I hid the money I got in a private place, and I showed Carmen that I was grateful for her hospitality.
I didn't even mean to do
So
that.
she didn't suspect me. Things went like that for 2 years, until one night, we heard someone knock on the door. Carmen went to answer. It was the police. I shivered as the officer told her that she was under arrest. The owner of the
He said,
started getting more time.